Hello, everybody. Welcome as folks join us today. This session, we're going to get started momentarily. Virtual playdates, turn your classroom into a creative sandbox. We are going to be starting with an activity. So we do have an action item for you. If you could just cue that up, any presentation software tool of your choice. So like I usually use Canva. Some folks like Keynote or PowerPoint or Adobe Spark or something of that nature. If you could just go ahead and get that opened so that as we jump into the activity, the tools that you need are already ready. All right, sounds great. So we're going to get started. Welcome everybody to this session, Virtual Playdates, Turning Your Classroom into a Creative Sandbox. It is great to have you with us today. Good to see everyone. We are both in Orlando, so it is the afternoon here, but good morning to all of our West Coast friends. So my name is Kari, Whaley. I am a course director in the Entertainment Business Graduate Degree Programs at Full Sail University. I'm joined by my colleague, Emily Wray. She's also a course director, but her specialization is in the Media Communications Degree Program, which is an undergraduate degree program. So we don't usually see each other or work together on campus. We bump into each other at the coffee shop near our offices, but otherwise we teach in different degree programs to different level students. And so this workshop kind of came about when we started collaborating together and bringing students together from very different degree programs. And it started in an in-person format in 2018 or 2019. And then we moved into the virtual space because of COVID. So our objectives for today are to gain an understanding of cross-departmental collaboration possibilities in the virtual space. And we're going to show you a little bit how we do that today, to engage in a virtual collaborative activity. And we're going to show you some recent case studies that we've done in our monthly play dates. So let's go ahead and get started.
All right, so I'm going to jump in. I'm Emily. As Kari mentioned, a little bit of backstory history to this is our playdates started on campus where we were merging different students from different degree programs. And what it looked like was, just a real smorgasbord of creative delights. We'd set up all these different stations. Students would practice different techniques, test out different gear, run through tutorials of different software. We would put on our favorite playlist, and it was really an energetic and vibrant space for folks just to move around and to spend more time in the areas that really interested them the most. But as Kari mentioned, when we had to move fully online in March, because of COVID, we had to switch these playdates to a virtual format. And it was really interesting because what we wanted to do was really preserve the energy and the interaction and what we were feeling and seeing with our students on campus, but how do we kind of fuel that fire in the online environment? Because of the virtual setting, it's not like students were free to move about the room or into sidebar conversations. And so we found that one of the things that we really needed to address and to plan for is to be just a bit more prescriptive in how we moved students through an experience or through an activity. In these virtual settings, we were finding that our participants were really just sort of waiting for us to facilitate, to set the stage, to move us on from task one to task two. Whereas when we were on campus, it was a much more organic, interactive experience. So we thought it would be great to start off today by giving you one of the experiences, definitely a condensed version of it, but we're going to start off with that here today.
All right, so this is kind of specific to some of the New Year's stuff that we would be doing, and we'll tell you some other ways that we do this later. So the activity we're going to ask you to participate in, we are going to layer text about your, or related to your 2021 intention over a single relevant image, and then save it as a JPEG file. And so the timeline for this activity, which we share with students up front, so they have an expectation about how the collaboration is going to go. We're going to spend about 5 minutes writing. We're going to do about a 5-minute image search. We're going to spend about 5 minutes assembling everything, and then we're going to come back and share what we've worked on. So before we do that, though, we do want to say this is a 20-minute version of something that we spend much greater length on. So normally our sessions are about 2 to 4 hours, right? So we've had sessions go longer than that because the students are just really participatory. So what we would normally do in a 2-hour session, we have crammed into a 20-minute, like a sneak peek for you. Also, and this is even with our longer sessions, the goal is not to create a masterpiece. We're not looking for something like really fine-tuned or perfectly created. The goal is just to engage with people, create a sense of community, and to finish it. And then what we do is, a lot of this is kind of free flowing because we tried to emulate that free flowing energy that we had in person. And so we create the timeline, we guide the timer as we go along, but we do encourage students to speak up when they run into a challenge, and then we are there to help them troubleshoot. And also the other students are there to help them troubleshoot. In fact, many times the students direct what kind of activity that we're going to do. And so we've experienced occasions where the students have far greater technical knowledge in the platform that we're using than we do. And we just help to facilitate the room and kind of keep things moving. All right, so here's one example. So for an intention in 2021 about creating more connection, if that was the intention that you came up with, you would layer the words more connection over a resonant image that you found. So here we have the hands. Emily, do you want to talk about the design elements at all?
Yeah, just I always like to highlight opportunities for students to add a little bit more personalization or intention into what it is that they are creating. So, feel free to choose a font or a typeface that carries an energy that might encapsulate or be supportive of the intention that you are looking to hold on to in the new year. And, if you have the skill or the desire or the software even to do, a manipulation or a treatment on the photo in some way. Maybe you found a great image that resonates for you, but you want to put it into grayscale, or maybe you want to add some kind of graphic enhancement on it. Also, feel free. There are multiple ways for you to kind of personalize this as we work through the structure or kind of the skeleton of the activity.
Here's another example. And so we've used some stock images, but we encourage students to use their own artwork or their own images. It's really, Emily, calls a lot of the work that we do like pick your own adventure type work. And so students really choose what they want to bring. And then create it kind of within the facilitation that we're doing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And so just to be clear, we are asking for all of you to participate in this and to create and be a part of this collaboration. So our instructions, the first thing we're going to do is start by doing a little bit of reflecting about your 2021 intention. And so this is really a key component of what we do as well, giving the students time to think, process, and journal. And today we're going to just do about 3 to 5 minutes based on the time that everyone needs. But our students, we usually spend much more time giving them really 15, 20 minutes to process through whatever it is they want to bring to the collaboration. So we're going to start with that. I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, but what we'll do, just to be mindful of time and when everyone finishes, when you have finished your reflection and you've come up with the intention, word or phrase that you want to use for the activity, if you'll just give us a 1 in the chat to indicate that you've finished step 1. And then once we've seen that most of the folks have finished step 1, we'll move on to step 2. So we're going to start step 1 now. This is a short silent reflection where you will think about your intention for 2021 and come up with a word or phrase that you're going to carry into the visual representation part of the collaboration. So let's go ahead and start that now.
All right, just a heads up that we have about 1 minute to finish up that intention for the new year. One of the things I'll just add is that during the facilitation of this, generally the instructors or any other faculty who have joined also participate. So it would be something where we would encourage cameras on. So it would almost be like we were working through this activity together in the same space, and encourage folks, if they had a question or a need, to go ahead and just turn on the mics and ask it. That we create just a very open conversational environment. One of the cool things that we do see with students in this time is that if one of them has a question or is running into something, maybe they don't have the resource, the tool that's needed, and they bring it up, it is another student who jumps in quickly to address the situation and offer like an alternative. So it becomes really collaborative in that way.
All right, so we have some folks, thanks to everybody in the chat who's indicated that they finished step 1. We spent about 3 to 4 minutes on it. So we're going to jump to the next piece. So what we are now going to ask you to do, using that tool that you opened up, PowerPoint, Keynote, Canva, Spark, whatever that might be, go ahead and find an image, and then you're going to layer the text from your phrase on top of that. And one of the ways I also describe this with my students, because so Emily teaches media communication students, and so a lot of this to them comes very easily, but I teach business leadership students, right? So my students are not in a creative degree program necessarily, or in any kind of media degree program. And so some of this doesn't come as quickly. And so I say it's like creating like an Instagram block or image. And so that's one of the things that will come out of this. And a lot of our students end up sharing our collaborations on social media as just part of their personal content. So we will give you, we'll set about 5 minutes on the timer. We're going to keep our mics on. If you'd like to turn your mics on, we totally encourage it. We are fine with background noise, especially in this setting, so that folks can kind of jump in and, you know, work off of each other or share things that you find. I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, and we'll kind of let you know how it goes. But like Emily said, as we're in this part of the process, students are doing work individually, but they're also relying on each other to troubleshoot as they run into things.
I am actually real time going to exit the presentation slide sharing and edit. I went to revise this slide immediately before we started and realized that I left a word out. So I'm going to hop in here. Okay. Kind of a fun story to share. When we first did this, our very first one, so it was so experimental, it was going to go on for about 3 hours, and we had many, many steps. And one of them was that the students had to create some piece of physical artwork in their home environments where they were doing this. And I said, go grab supplies, grab some paper, grab colored pens or crayons or whatever you have. And this one student barely had anything of the sort, but he had paper plates. And so he ran to the kitchen and he drew and painted on paper plates with condiments. Like it was wild, but also just a very resourceful thing to do. One of the things, we did a version of this a few months back, and we encouraged students just to take their own photos or take one from their camera reel, or they could create artwork, physical artwork, and take a picture of it with their phones. So there were a lot of different ways that students could approach the ask. So we have just about a minute or so to look for that image. If you've completed this step, go ahead and just put a 2 in the chat area so that we can just get a sense of where folks are.
All right. So we are at the end of our time for that. And I see that we have quite a few folks who have finished the step. So now what we're going to do is move into breakout rooms for just 5 minutes. So it's going to be a relatively short session. And we ask that in the breakout rooms, you do a couple of things. And Emily, if you could add this to the chat, just in case anybody wants to grab it, we're going to ask you to introduce yourself to the folks in the breakout room. So maybe a name and something that you'd like to share about yourself. We're going to ask you to share your image with the folks in the breakout room. And then if you have time, and you may not have time, you can share anything that you, insights that you might have had about the process. So I'm going to go ahead and set these up right now. 3 to 4 people in each room. So that'll give everybody about a minute to share. And then we will close the breakout rooms and come back here. I know many of you are Zoom pros, but we do just want to tell you, when you get the notification that the room is going to close, please feel free to use that 60 seconds remaining if you're still in conversation. You don't have to jump right back in. We'll see you when the rooms are formally closed and you get kicked back into the main room. All right, it looks like we've got everybody back. If you'd like to share your final image in the chat, we would love to see those. And then folks who weren't in your breakout room can also check out what you have created.
So is there anybody who wants to share anything that came up in their breakout rooms, any ideas coming up for you about how this might inspire something in your environment, how you might be able to collaborate across departments with another faculty member or another population of students? Just want to pause here before we get into any more of the debriefing on it, just to see what's come up for you guys.
I don't mind sharing. It was really not enough time for us to go through everything. We just kind of went through introductions, but I write names down and I go look people up on LinkedIn because it's a big thing for me to actually network with people. So all 3 of the people in my room, if you're on LinkedIn, I'm going to be looking you up because I'm very interested in your stories and how I might be able to talk to you more about ed tech and like what networks we can leverage in the future, because I'm all about that.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. And you are right. It is definitely not a lot of time. And just, another contextual piece for this is we do this for students that we have in class. And so in addition to this collaboration, our students also know each other or have met as peers. And so we can usually jump right into the collaborating, and we don't need as much time for intros and stuff like that.
Also, depending upon the size of your group and the time that you have available, we're working with a real short 45 minutes for this session. And we wanted to do something kind of experiential to kind of, get you seeing how you could leverage all the different aspects of Zoom and co-facilitation and like doing something together in real time. But like, depending upon your group, you might just want to share in the big, without going to breakout rooms, and just ask for anybody who wants to share or who feels comfortable sharing. Certainly for us, it's always, it's a buy-in opportunity for students. We never force everybody to share anything that they've worked on. It's always invitation based. Part of this is that we want to create a safe environment where students feel free just to kind of play around and experiment with things that they might not be so sure about or might not feel like they have a level of like proficiency or expertise in just yet. So we do want to share just a few kind of deeper contextual thoughts about the possibilities of these types of activities in the virtual space, right? Dr. Whaley talked a little bit about building community. For us, working in different departments across the university, it's really siloed at times. And so this allows us to kind of have a mixing environment where we can model, right, this virtual networking, making new friends, talking about, things that we're interested or things that we're good at. And, in this space, students are able to share what they're working on or what they might need help with. And so we find that it becomes really rich for those kinds of interactions. We talked a little bit about how it kind of helps build confidence in them, to interact within this environment, right, to get handy with the Zoom tools, right? How to navigate sharing an image or sharing their screen. And so there's, it gives them an opportunity to learn how to become presenters in this space, how to use this tool as well. For a lot of business students, when they come into these creative environments, they're definitely exploring new skills or new ways of expressing themselves. Not often are you asked to share like your intentions for the new year, with your business class, unless it's a entrepreneurial intention, but it really kind of allows them to maybe launch a new tool or to think like, well, if I don't have this kind of software, how might I still approach the ask? And so in that way, it promotes a lot of critical thinking and having them respond to, just like, how do I cross the finish line with this? If I don't have this tool or if I don't have that, how can I still be a participant in this and still kind of meet the desired outcome or deliverable? The other thing it does is democratizes expertise. As we mentioned, we keep mics on when someone has a problem, like they just say, hey, I don't have that, or like, I haven't updated my Zoom, so I don't have the feature you're asking me to use. And most of the time, it's other students who are jumping in to say, oh, you don't have the ability to airdrop something from here to there, try this. And like, they're really quick to step in to help each other. And most of the time, they do it much quicker and have many more creative solutions than anything we could have pre-planned ahead of time. And then the other part of this is that it's just more fun to do something together than it is to lecture to a bunch of still images representing our students on the screen. We talk that like we spend a couple of hours generally doing this. We literally spent over 6 hours one day together creating something in this space. And nobody set out to spend that much time, but we were just so engaged and we wanted to push together so hard that for 6 hours we were creating something together. So
we were also using, just so no one is like, oh, I cannot commit to that. We were using a new tool that for all of us, Adobe Audition. So we did an entire collaboration in Adobe Audition and none of us were really proficient in it. And so that was like a navigation and experience in itself. All right, so some tips for doing this. We really amplify student voice as we plan activities. The way this kind of worked is we planned the first one and then we ask the students to bring ideas and we create the collaborations around the student ideas. And so one time students had ideas for a sing-along. That was the one that we created in Adobe Audition together. We had students who wanted to create one of the videos where we took sunglasses and then we put them into our screen and then pulled them away, and then each student did it, and then we edited all the Zoom video so that it would be like a continuous stream, right? And then all the students were like, it needs to finish with the president of the university doing it. You know, so they really kind of bring what is in like media pop culture, and then we create it as collaborators. We really act as kind of mentors in the process, and the students lead the creative design. We also encourage students to coach other students, which is what we've talked a lot about. The assignment is, there is no assignment, there is no deliverable, right? We don't attach a grade to the experience at all. Really, our primary factor is building community and giving students a sense to connect with other people, connect with other students. Because one of the things that we ran into, especially in the beginning of COVID, is that our students were feeling a lot of isolation, and they were reaching out to us for support. And so we kept this going as a way for them to feel connection despite being physically in a space alone. We also use it for relevant connections. So one of the great things about being cross-departmental is that our students come from very different degree programs. So we have entertainment business degree students, we have film students, we have game design and development students, we have media communication students, and they're all coming together to work on something that they will have when they're done. A lot of students end up using what we do for their portfolios or for their social media brands and that type of thing. And then the last thing is to bring in help when you need it. So in the Adobe Audition one, neither of us had used it really meaningfully, but one of our colleagues teaches Adobe Audition. And so we reached out to him, and he essentially guided us through the entire process. And so we're constantly, tapping on the shoulders of our faculty friends and asking them to come be a part of the session as an expert to help it. So one of our creations was this: we rewrote a Queen song, and then we all sang it and recorded ourselves doing it. And Emily can tell you a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I went ahead and just threw some links into the chat area. These are some of our case studies, and I tend to document and publish the results on my Instagram account. So that's a link to my account where I do a bit of storytelling and then share what it is that we create. The one that Kari is talking about is called Somewhere to Learn Example. And so this is the one that we ended up spending, 6 hours creating. We had this like wildly huge idea, and the scope just was like, we rewrote the song inspired by Queen's Send Me Someone to Love, but it's Somewhere to Learn. And then we had our colleague Aaron, that's who's represented in the middle of this album artwork mock-up that we've got here. He was just our audio hero, and he came in and created an audition template, and then we all divvied up the parts to the song. We learned our parts, we sang our parts together through Zoom, and Aaron was recording it, and in real time mixing these parts together to create this just evolved version of this Queen song. It was a very unique experience, because as educators, I think many times we are feeling like we need to be the expert in the room, and that we'll have all the answers, and that we know how to troubleshoot stuff when things happen. And let me tell you, I had absolutely no idea how to do what we were going to do. I needed to rely on Aaron's expertise. And we just kind of gave ourselves up to the process and gave ourselves up to the day. And what I'll share is that like we had an experience together that really serves as a foundation for how we like know each other and collaborate on future projects and in future classes together. There were some students in this group who had never taken Erin's class before, but then now we're very excited to take Erin's class. Or alternatively, there were students in this group who had been in Erin's class before, and they served as like helpers throughout the day when we were getting really bogged down because they had learned about audition from Erin before. So, you know, there are a lot more stories and details that we can tell you, you know, about the things that we tried. I did put a list here in the chat area if you want to explore some of the things that we've done or some of the things that we've created. But we also want to just, you know, spend the remaining time that we have talking to you guys and seeing like, if you have any questions or ideas, or, you know, if this is kind of bringing up any possibilities for you.
I'd say something about this. I was just thinking about my own subject area. So I teach biology, medicine. And I think a lot of our students, I mean, famously, scientists are often a bit tongue-tied. They don't like to speak out. You know, I think students in the arts and the humanities are often more expressive. But I think if you said to the students, the task is something science specific, if you said, I want you to choose the top priority for science in the next year, or the top biology for medicine, and you could probably constrain it a bit. You could rule out some subjects. You could say you're not allowed to talk about COVID or vaccines. You know, you have to come up with something a bit more creative than that. If you gave it some framing or templating like that, it would certainly help my students, because I remember sitting there when you gave me the task and thinking, actually, what are my intentions? You know, it was quite hard to think of them. But I actually really enjoyed the exercise when I'd done it, although I was panicking a bit when you set the task. But I think it's one of those things that's rewarding to do, even though it's quite hard.
Thank you for sharing that, Jeffrey. You know, what's funny is that, like, as we were kind of thinking through what to share with you today and realizing, you know, that like our university specializes in digital media, entertainment, design, and that most of our examples lean towards that way, we thought, well, what would a biology?
We did. We
said biology.
Said, like, what would a biology student do?
Yeah. So thank you for, you know, joining in and kind of moving past that moment of panic, right, into, you know, feeling just a bit of agency in having completed the task at hand. So I feel like you got a real student experience today with that.
We also do talk a lot about, and thanks Jeffrey for sharing this, we talk with our students in class 1 about like moving through discomfort, and that we're going to ask them to do things that maybe don't fit what they've done before or the way they've done it before, but that the discomfort is the path to growth, sometimes. And so we kind of say that up front so that they know going into it, like, I might be uncomfortable, but so is everybody else. And we're going to collaborate and create something together. So.
Any other thoughts about how you felt during this? If you could see yourself doing something like this with a colleague, or, you know, like, certainly you don't need to even be at the same university, given the tools available to us now. It's in fact kind of wild that I feel more connected to other educators and more connected to other schools and departments than I ever did prior to these last 9 months of completely virtual learning.
You know, what's funny was when I saw your session and I saw virtual playdates, I'm actually working a lot on virtual reality right now in my classrooms with my students. And so the first thing I thought it was virtual reality, even though that wasn't in there. And so I kind of, this is a far stretch and it's a little far off, but I kind of am picturing this kind of activity in a virtual reality environment. Like, what would it look like? Because, you know, we have, there's like a Microsoft Paint, you know, where you can go in there and do that. And what I'm playing with right now is AltSpace VR. So I'm following educators in VR on Discord and setting up meetings with my team so that this is something that I could eventually launch with students and teachers. But like, yeah, I'm already jumping ahead and like, oh, like doing this activity in VR and what it would look like.
That's really cool, Kelly. You know, if I could encourage all of you to approach this idea and the facilitation of these playdates with like a playfulness in your heart and a beginner's mind, in that like things just don't happen the way that you dream they will, that it is at times awkward, and that you're troubleshooting together, but that's kind of the point. Like, it's very humanizing for everybody involved, because it's not just some slick design slides and everything works the way that it should, and it brings us together in very real ways as a result of kind of thinking through and troubleshooting all of the things that do actually come up.
All right, well, that is also our time. So I just want to be respectful of everyone's schedule. Emily and I are going to hang out here for a few extra minutes. So please feel free to stay. If you have any questions, we can talk more about some of our other examples that we put in the chat. But if you are headed into the next session, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, you know, and stay safe in these times.
Thanks, everybody. It's great to see you all.
Thank you.